Thank you for staying tuned. Like a stubborn ailment that has continued to defy treatment, the Nigerian power sector, which has undergone different levels of diagnosis and treatment, appears to be resistant to the harvest of interventions from the public and private sector since Nigeria attained its independence in 1960. Whatever the situation, the reality today is that many Nigerians do not currently have access to as much power supply as they would want, and when they do, it is not reliable despite the privatization of the sector. In recent times, the country's national grid has been plugged with challenges in the transmission, distribution subsectors, which has led to consistent collapse. Joining me live to look at this the past 62 years, he is the former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, that's NERC, and Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Amadi. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Nigeria's power sector in 62 years. Well, for me, I was able to know the Nigerian Electricity Power, that's NEPA. We're so used to that before Power Holding Company of Nigeria. And finally, where we are today, fight privatization and all of that. Take us through that journey and how far we have gone. Today, we're still doing around 4,500 megawatts for a country of 200 million people.
Well, nobody who remembers that Nigeria first got its grid power in 1896, a 25 or thereabout power plant in Ijora, coal-fired, obviously serving the colonial master. That's 1896. Maybe about 15 years or thereabout after grid power go to the UK. So essentially, we were not a late starter. We started good time between then and up to 2000, when the first policy on the Nigerian power reform policy was crafted. We were doing not more than 1,500, 200 megawatts, and we didn't have up to not more than 4,000 to 6,000 installed and possibly available capacity. So what that tells a story of failure to invest and expand. So if you started in 18 something with 20 something megawatts, you would by now, like India, like even South Africa, less population with close to about 50,000 megawatts. So here we are today with actual, deliverable daily supply of less than 4,000. First, now if you look also that the electricity sector in Nigeria started as a disaggregated, unbundled, decentralized power system. So in the 1960s, you of course had the Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, ECN. You had the Niger Dam Authority dealing with dams in northern part of Nigeria. They were all brought together. The first time we had a bundled, vertical integrated network was 1974, what is now called NEPA, Nigeria Electric Power Authority, which was, so before then, we had segregated. So we were segregated, we bundled ourselves in 1974, and that marked public monopoly power supply that failed up until 2000 and 2001 when the NEP came out, of course 2005 when we had the electric power sector reform, and then NEC came in, and then we started bundling again by bringing first power holding, and then in 2013 we now had a fully privatized distribution network, of course, generation and keeping transmission. So two stories come out here. One, insufficient capacity growth. Government did not, where the last major power plant we had for this reform was Ebin power plant, which was around 87 or thereabout, or up to thereabout. And then we never had a new one until we now started dealing with the IPPs under Obasanjo IPP projects, where they use the joint fund of federal government, states, and federal government to start building the 10 power plants, which are today not all fully on board. So missed opportunities to expand capacity. Second point here is we had a public monopoly that didn't do well, and now we are into private, like monopoly, yes, because all the discos are now monopolies, private, and we're still not doing far better. That's what we argue. And maybe in comparative terms, and consider how much government has put into this process, one could argue that we're even doing worse than we did run up to privatization. So that's the state of play right now. We didn't improve time, we didn't build capacity, and when we now bundled, we had an efficiency. Now we have unbundled and privatized. We are yet to have significant efficiency to give much hope of success.
So is there an issue of the grid not having that capacity to serve the population, not planning with the population expansion, or is it that we need to, look for other sources, particularly the IPPs and all of that? Is that where we should look at the moment? And also other sources of power?
Sure. I think the problem is very poor integrated resource planning. When you're urbanizing a country like that, conventionally, you should be having 2,000 to 5,000 megawatts increment yearly, generation capacity, because to control for urbanization, for middle class expansion of middle class, as more people become more middle class, become more modernized, they get more gadgets, so they consume more power. We didn't do any of that. And, just like our infrastructure, look at the road connecting Abuja to the rest of the country. We have big lands, but we tend to have very small, narrow roads. And now we are spending money, borrowing a lot to expand, to do the basics we should have done at the time of oil boom. Don't forget, that was the time that a Nigerian president says, we don't know what to do with money. We are busy helping other African countries. So that's the major failure. Government failure to invest wisely and invest proportionately to expected increase in energy demand. Again, so that's a question of capacity growth. Second is modeling. So when we choose to even invest, how do we invest? Do we invest smartly? Do we use the market to run this system because of its efficiency? Do we construct a very rent-seeking state? So you have minister of power, minister of energy then, and you had power, NEPA, and you had helicopters here and there. Some people they can even sell power without collecting, thinking about the commerciality of that transaction. So both failure to invest and failure to use the right kind of model, the model that tells you that you need to make profit, reinvest that profit to expand not just capacity or quantity, but also improve the reliability of the network. So today, we are using a different model, mostly private sector. But again, we need to deal with the leadership and governance issue around regulatory. How do we incentivize these private entities play maximally for public interest? How do we monitor them? Because essentially, there's no magic of private sector. If there are no rules and regulations to align them to the public interest, they could be there making money, profitable, and not delivering on the mandate. Or even worst case, becoming bankrupt enterprises. We've seen the Fed Bank, there are private banks, we've seen several private Enrons of this world. So the private firms themselves can go bankrupt and underserve strategic public interest if we don't have smart public sector, smart regulators, efficient policymakers who are thinking around how do we cater for the growth, expected growth in consumption, population, and of course, to serve our strategic need for competitive economy and national security. Those are considerations that we didn't have in the past, and we need to have now to do very efficient and practical energy resource management plan so that you are planning end to end, not just investing in new power plants, but also so that those power plants that are available are routinely maintained, managed well, so that they can deliver their capacity. We might make a mistake of investing more and more, expanding more. And again, renewable energy, clean energy, all the incentives around clean energy, new technologies, how do we use policy shape so that even as we cure our gross incapacity in supply, we are also improving the quality and the cleanness of the energy and moving into green economy so that it doesn't down on us too late when our fossil fuel resources will be able to carry our strategic entry into a green economy. So this is all about quality thinking, strategic thinking, and efficient project management and delivery.
Making real sense. Now, Doc, before I let you go, because of course time is well spent, nowhere enough to discuss the power sector. What really is the role of the private sector in Nigeria's power value chain? I want you to explain to us. We thought that when they came in, to privatize, take over the discos, we're going to see a shift. What really should be their role? Because many will say government cannot fund power. It's capital intensive.
Well, it's true. I mean, the private sector has a role to provide financing. And that's because if the market reform works, then they're able to attract private sector financing from the different persons who have incentive and interest to invest in the entities because they are profitable. So their bottom line is find the money, find the managerial know-how, come and deliver power for Nigeria. But to do that, the government has to set the stage right. Not just tariffs and regulations, but also confidence building. Again, there are also some pieces of this power sector, at least at the beginning, that the private sector will have enough incentive to carry. Transmission is a public good, so nobody can fund it as at this stage. So those inefficiencies is government who has to smartly, and this is important, government can actually provide services if they use market-based pricing policy and structure, where private sector may not want to come in. Nigeria market is still a risky market. It hasn't got a history of creditworthiness. It hasn't got a history of contract trading for long. In our power sector, we just tried to do with bulk trade. And so that lack of creditworthiness is a disincentive for private sector to do some things. They're going to look at the profitability. So some of those important work, transmission network provision and so on and so forth, that the private sector may not have the appetite to embrace right now. Government should intervene, but intervene in clear ways that provide incentive and that is not putting more risk on the sector. Government cannot just come and dump themselves in the sector. They have to come with SPV, and that's why I have a regulator. Government can work with the private sector, set up and socialize some costs that the private sector may not want to take. And so when you see a smart government, an entrepreneurial government, doing the right things, then the private sector will have more confidence to come in, sometimes alone, sometimes with government, because the government has a track record of intelligence, of contracting stability, of political certainty, and of course, policy continuity. So I think we're getting better gradually, but we need to do more to turn around the level of inefficiency in the public sector.
If you can do this in 1 minute, cost-reflective tariff, we've talked about this before now, is another argument that the investors will put up and tell you that we can't sell power at a subsidized rate. Government wants us to sell at this amount, we're generating at this amount. Where do we get a balance in all of this? Okay, I could get Dr. Amadi. Dr. Amadi, can you hear me? Dr. Amadi, can you hear me? All right, well, we were able to make...
I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Amadi.
So what's the question again?
Yes, I talked about cost-reflective tariff. Where do we strike a balance here? The discos will say, yes, we need cost-reflective tariff, and customers will say we want supply.
I think they are convergible. I mean, you can converge them. Customers want supply. Discos need the resources to, get the supply out. So what I think is this, look, I think the Nigerian customers have shown that they can actually take tariff if it is backed up with improvement in service. In fact, let's not make a mistake. This, in the last 1 year, in fact, less than a year, we've seen about 2-3 tariff increases depending on which bandwidth and where you are. So really, oftentimes discos make a heavy weight of tariff increase. Customers are prepared, I think, to some level taking increase, but they want to see the discos, the operators, and the government deliver on their own money. So you can't, for example, I've seen a lot of increase in my bill, but I've not seen significant improvement in service quality or duration of service. So I think that even as a regulator, I want to call manageable tariff increase and rate shock. You can't push tariffs too far. If you do, you create negative incentives for theft of power, for other antisocial behavior. So an orderly power sector is one. There is increasing cost base relative to purchasing power, relative to quality of supply. If you insist on basically increasing tariffs inordinately because you think there's a captive audience or customer base for you to predate on, you are on a risk of failing to deliver on that service. So you have to calibrate fair tariffs, reasonable tariff, affordable, but also able just to allow operators to recover their funds.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi. He is the former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. They're giving insights into Nigeria's power sector all year long. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.